Broadcasting live from the Murrow College of Communications. It's the Evan Pretzer Show. And now, your host, Evan Pretzer.
Hi there, Jillian. Thank you for joining me on the show today. Now, for those of my listeners who are not familiar with your grandfather, tell us about him and the work that he did in his life.
Well, my grandfather was called by many as the king of comics because he was really one of the most prolific and groundbreaking comic book artists of the 20th century. And many of the characters he created, such as the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, Captain America, went on to become popular like movies and were mass merchandise after the original comic book series. And now his original artwork at auction sells for around like 5 to 6 figures. And my grandfather's first big success in comics was with co-creating Captain America in 1940 with Joe Simon. And after that, he served in World War II in the infantry in northern France. And after the war, he worked on many comic books and syndicated comic strips, even though the comic book industry was suppressed. Especially after the publication of psychiatrist Frederick Wertham's book, Seduction of the Innocent, in 1954, which is about the evils of comics. He joined Marvel Comics in 1959 and working on monster books, westerns, and romance titles. And in 1961, he co-created the Fantastic Four. And after that, he went on to co-create or create characters such as the Hulk, the Avengers, X-Men, the Silver Surfer, Doctor Doom, and many others. And it was during this time that he was given the name King of Comics by Marvel editor Stan Lee to help promote and market the book. In 1970, he left Marvel to go to DC Comics for more creative freedom, and he was drawing, writing, and editing his own books. And that was when he created the Fourth World series, which included The New Gods, The Forever People, and Mr. Miracle. He returned to Marvel in 1975 with creative control over Captain America, and he worked on several new books, including The Internals, Machine Man, and 2001: A Space Odyssey. And he did pass away on February 6, 1994, which was the year before I was born. So that was why I helped create my Kirby for Heroes campaign, which is to raise money for the Hero Initiative, which helps comic book creators, writers, and artists in medical or financial distress. And one of my main reasons for creating the campaign was to get closer to my grandfather, and it was something that I thought that he would be proud of.
Wow, it's amazing. Now, one of the most important creations that your grandfather worked on, in my opinion, was probably Captain America. What most people probably aren't aware of is that the character debuted a full year before U.S. involvement in the Second World War, and the cover of Captain America #1 featured the character punching Hitler in the face, which is just fantastic. Mm-hmm. Now, I've read and heard from several pieces of media through the years that Jack Kirby and Joe Simon actually got death threats from people for advocating such a pro-war stance. Is that true?
It is true, actually. My grandfather and Joe Simon, both being Jewish and having created an American hero shown punching Hitler in the jaw on the cover of the first issue of Captain America, did receive death threats, which were presumed to be from members of the American Nazi Party in New York. As Captain America was really popular at that time, and still is, they were offered police protection from the mayor's office. And I believe the story is that an officer stood outside their office building for about a week.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing. I mean, you know, there's so many artists today who just do work for a paycheck and never really have very forward-thinking message like that. That is absolutely something. Now, what's unique about your grandfather, and unlike a lot of other artists during the period who were drafted, he actually served in combat and spent some time over in Europe. Now, did he ever speak about his military service after the war, or was it something that he did and then just didn't talk about it afterwards and saw it as a duty, so to speak?
Well, my father said that later in my grandfather's life, he opened up and told some of his war stories, some funny, but most detailing the horrors of war, and some things my grandpa never spoke about, and my father only heard about them from his mother.
Wow.
I know there is a story during the battle for the French city of Metz, and after spending several weeks in foxholes, often containing ice-cold water and mud, my grandfather suffered trench foot, which is a condition similar to frostbite. And his feet were so swollen that his leather boots had to be cut off, and he spent the next several months in hospitals in France, England, and the United States before being discharged in 1945. But he was very lucky in that they did not have to amputate his feet, as one doctor initially wanted to, and he eventually made a full recovery.
Wow, that is absolutely amazing. And one thing, folks, for those who are listening, Kirby, during the Second World War, did duties as a scout where he was often ordered to go into enemy towns in advance of other soldiers and map out the area. Incredibly, incredibly dangerous work. So we should have a very high level of respect for him for doing that. Now, after the Second World War in the 1960s, he co-created the Fantastic Four, Thor, the Hulk, Iron Man, the X-Men, and the Black Panther, and has not earned a dime from those creations when they've become multi-million-dollar films and earned a lot of money for their respective companies with merchandise. Do you think Jack would have worked on those properties had he known that he wouldn't have received any of the money from them when they became million-dollar franchises in the future?
That's a pretty difficult question, but I would have to say yes for two reasons. First, overriding and guiding force of my grandfather's life was to provide for his family, and by the early 1960s, when the bulk of the Marvel Universe was being created, my grandfather had a wife, 4 children, and a house on Long Island, and the only way he knew of earning a living was by creating, drawing, and even writing comic books. And then second, how do you stifle creativity in a creative genius? I don't think you can. I think his very nature and need to create wonderful art and compelling stories would have negated any thought of material gain. To be fair, however, I know that he was very upset by how he was being treated by Marvel, both financially and creatively, and that's why he left for DC Comics in 1970.
Wow. Wow. What an amazing, amazing story. Now, another thing about your grandfather and a lot of people who work in the comics industry is that they're very, very kind-hearted people, very genuine. And you recently spoke about how one time at a bar mitzvah, Jack went out and brought in a homeless man from the streets inside to eat with him and other members of your family. Now, did he ever stay in touch with that fellow later on? And for those of my listeners who haven't heard this story, could you tell us about it?
Yeah, it's a really touching story, and it took place in the early 1960s. My grandfather and father were attending the bar mitzvah of a cousin at synagogue on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. And being a family of meager means, there was no reception, just a small buffet in the entrance foyer of the synagogue. My father says that he and my grandfather had just gotten their food and sat down at a small folding table when my grandpa Jack saw a homeless man just standing outside looking in the open door of the synagogue. My grandfather immediately got up from his chair and walked over to the man, let him inside, sat him down at his own table, and went and got him a plate of food. And not a word was exchanged between the two men. When my father and grandfather were finished eating, they noticed the man had left. my grandpa Jack had grown up poor in that very same neighborhood, and he knew what it was like to be hungry. And my grandfather never saw the man again after that.
Wow. Wow. What an incredibly kind-hearted person. What do you think was his favorite property to do work on, to do art for?
Well, my father tells me that Grandpa enjoyed working on almost all of his creations, but he held Captain America nearest and dearest to his heart. Not only was this because he was my grandpa's first real commercial success, but that Captain America really stood for all the ideals that my grandfather believed in. Love of country and helping the underdog and standing up to bullies, whether it be Hitler or some creepy monster.
Wow. Wow. If you're just joining us, folks, I'm here talking with Jillian Kirby, the granddaughter of American icon and very, very, very famous comic artist Jack Kirby. Now, the one thing I've noticed about some of your grandfather's work is that, in my opinion, he seems like he was a very socially conscious man. When you look at Black Panther, one of the first black superheroes in all of the comics industry, and Captain America advocating a pro-war stance before American involvement in the Second World War, you can clearly see that he was a man who cared about a lot of the key issues that were going on in society. If he were alive today, what do you think he would have thought about some of the issues in our time, such as something like same-sex marriage? Do you think he would have been opposed to that, or do you think he would have had no problem with it?
Well, my grandfather was extremely socially conscious, and I have no doubt at all that he would have supported gay marriage. My father told me this story. During the summer of 1969, at the height of the United Farm Workers strike, my grandma Roz made the mistake of buying grapes at the grocery, even though there was a nationwide boycott. My grandfather happened to be in the kitchen when she was unloading the groceries, and when he saw the grapes, he got extremely angry and threw them out the kitchen window.
Wow. Wow. It's amazing. Now, Jack and other creators not having rights to their work and not earning any money from their great creations is what led to the Hero Initiative forming to help a lot of comics creators who are having a hard time. What do they do, and how did you come to associate with that charitable organization?
Well, the Hero Initiative is the first ever federally chartered not-for-profit corporation, and it's dedicated strictly to helping comic book creators in need. Hero creates a financial safety net for yesterday's creators who may need emergency medical aid, financial support for essentials of life, and an avenue back into paying work. And the Hero Initiative, it's a chance for all of us to give back to something to people who have given us like so much enjoyment over all these years with the comic book industry and the creations that they made.
Yeah. They're one of my personal favorite charities. I discovered them when I realized that the co-creator of Batman didn't earn any money off of the character, and I thought that was just so fundamentally wrong. And to those of you who aren't aware of them, please donate, 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 donate. They have a very great campaign called the Wake Up and Draw campaign. And what people do there is they do artwork when they wake up in the morning on your grandfather's birthday. How did that come to pass? Like, how did that idea get formed? Was it something that you came up with?
Wake Up and Draw actually was not my personal idea. Wake Up and Draw was the idea of the founder of the Hero Initiative, Tim McLaughlin. And my campaign was called Kirby for Heroes. We also work with the Hero Initiative. And what that is that I reached out to comic book retailers across the nation, and many of them donated a percentage of their sales on August 28th to the Hero Initiative, or some of them actually brought in comic book artists to make, like, similar to Wake Up and Draw. They made original art and for the comic book retailers, and then the retailers would auction it off and donate the money to the Hero Initiative. And so both Wake Up and Draw and Kirby for Heroes are, I think they're really great campaigns to help support the members of the comic book industry that do need assistance.
Wow. Now, when did you start the Kirby for Heroes campaign?
I started it last summer in 2012, a couple months before what would have been my grandfather's 95th birthday, August 28th, 2012. And, yeah, like I mentioned earlier, because I really wanted to do something charity related, and I came up with the campaign as a way to celebrate my grandfather and somehow get to know him better. And I wanted to support a charity that my grandfather would have championed, and the Hero Initiative was the one that seemed best. And I thought that creating a campaign with goals of raising money to benefit the Hero Initiative would be a good way to honor the legacy of my grandfather Jack by giving back to the comic book community.
Wow. Now, for the future of the Kirby for Heroes campaign, one thing I've noticed that the group does now is they just get comic book stores to donate portions of their proceeds. Do you think that you would be able to get like a bookstore chain or maybe even Amazon.com in the future to donate a portion of the graphic novels that they sell featuring your grandfather's characters, to donate some of those proceeds to charity? Or do you think they're just too large of corporations and that they're uncaring and unconcerned in a sense?
No, I'm really not sure about the big chains yet. I know one of my main goals for my grandfather's upcoming 100th birthday in 2017 was to this would be like the dream really, to have like an exhibition of his artwork in like an art museum, even like in New York or California where I was raised, and that would just be my main dream really, and just to help spread awareness of my grandfather and his legacy. Like, I haven't put much thought into like tackling any like big things. I think sticking with the comic book stores is they're really I think in touch with obviously the comic book industry, since they're the comic book stores. And yeah, so I'm just going to work toward my goal and hopefully just get as much accomplished as possible and just help raise as much money as I can for the Hero Initiative.
Right on, right on. You're doing very, very great work. If your grandfather was still alive, he'd be very proud, I think. Now, one couple more questions here.
Mm-hmm.
With your family not getting any money from, obviously, the Marvel films that come out featuring your grandfather's characters, do you sort of harbor any resentment towards the company for not giving you guys any royalties or anything?
Well, like, personally, for me, it's not, my personal, like, battle against the companies. Like, I'm not all too familiar about all, like, the contracts and what went on back in, like, the 20th century, like, originally with, my grandfather and the, Marvel Corporation. But, I mean, what they turned into, I really enjoy all of the movies that they've made with the characters. And, I personally don't, really have, resentment about this. Like, I mean, I guess a couple things maybe if they're done differently in the past, like, might have changed, how today was. But, I mean, like, I am, like, completely, like, okay with just how things are right now. I know that, my grandfather wasn't, treated the best by the corporation, so.
Yeah, okay. And, just, one more question in closing here. For the Kirby for Heroes campaign, if you could have one prominent artist in the comics industry come and do, like, maybe a piece of original art that got auctioned off for the Hero Initiative and charitable organizations, who would you like to have come in and just create something amazing, if you could pick anybody?
Oh, wow, that's a tough one. I know there are a lot of comic book artists that I'm a big fan of. I really enjoy Neil Adams too. I think that would be great if since I know that he worked on a lot of great comic books, and he was actually I know he worked on like Superman and Batman and Green Arrow, and I really admire his work, and I think it would be really cool if he could come in and do something. I don't know if he'd be able to, but I think that would be great. And a lot of amazing, like, up-and-coming new artists, too. A lot of the artists that submitted pictures for the Wake Up and Draw event, they were amazing, and I've seen some drawings that would be auctioned off on August 28th, like, from different comic book stores, and those have been really great, too. So, yeah, there are just a lot of great artists out there, and I think Neil Adams would be pretty cool if he could get to do something.
Excellent, excellent. Jillian, I want to thank you for taking the time to sit down and speak with me today. Anytime you want to come back on the program, just message me and let me know. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much for having me.
It was an absolute delight. Thank you, and goodbye.
The Evan Pretzer Show will be back next week. Be sure to follow Evan on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Thanks for listening.